Hello, all. Welcome and thank you for joining us tonight for this Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month webinar. My name is Ayana Wallace View, and I'm one of the Training and Technical Assistance Managers with Ujima. Ujima is the National Center on Violence Against Women in the Black Community. We are one of 5 nationally designated culturally specific resource centers, and our work focuses specifically on the Black community at large and more specifically Black women and girls. And so I have the pleasure of introducing our panel today and also showing some of our recent work. We have a prevention animation and a mini documentary that we filmed last year that we want to show because we did some really, really great work under our vaccination grant, and we were able to really propel our Connected and Protected initiative. Tanji was one of our amazing facilitators. Dr. Rice hosted the space and helped bring folks to campus to learn. Ruth was there as well. We've been really connected now to the Love Quest Foundation. So again, I'm really excited for the folks on this call. And let me go ahead and introduce folks. I am going to read their bios because folks are really like on this call, folks are doing things. And so I really want people to know all of the amazing stuff that's happening with their orgs, with themselves as individual advocates. So let's do intros and then we'll jump into the first showing. So our first panelist is Ruth Garcia. Ruth Garcia is an amazing advocate and member of Ujima's Teen and Youth Engagement Advisory Group. Ruth holds a Bachelor's of Arts in Global Studies with a minor in film and video production. Her experience includes community engagement and domestic violence advocacy within nonprofit settings, alongside advocacy for minority students in higher education, focused on access, equality, and student safety. She supported campus-based initiatives through resident assistant programming, safety education, and community building efforts. And Ruth brings a thoughtful, interdisciplinary approach grounded in intention, care, and community accountability. I'm really, really happy to have you here with us, Ruth. I think you are a great voice to have in the room. And so looking forward to what you're going to bring. Next up, we have Dr. Johnny Rice, who is a senior consultant and one of Ujima's research and evaluation work group members. Dr. Rice is an associate professor and former chair of the Department of Criminal Justice in the College of Behavioral Sciences at Coppin State University, which is a historically Black college university in Baltimore, Maryland. He is also currently a research fellow for the Bishop L. Robinson Senior Justice Institute, where he's leading student research teams exploring issues such as gun violence, domestic violence, and juvenile delinquency. Before joining Coppin, he worked as a senior program associate at the Vera Institute of Justice in their Center on Victimization and Safety. He spent over the past 24 years providing leadership, technical assistance, and support to organizations that serve low-income fathers and families in the areas of child welfare, youth development, and criminal justice in efforts to create safe and stable communities. Before joining Vera, he worked as a public administrator for the Maryland Department of Human Services, formerly Department of Human Resources. At DHR, he served as the state administrator for the Victims of Crime Act, VOCA, program, the Family Violence Prevention and Services Act, FIPSA, Domestic Violence Program, and the Rape Crisis and Sexual Assault Program, and other federally funded and state-funded responsible fatherhood programs as well. His portfolio also encompassed emergency food and homeless services programs. Previously, Dr. Rice held the position of Chief Operating Officer and Director of the Nationally Recognized Men's Services Responsible Fatherhood Program at the Center for Urban Families in Baltimore. At CFUF, he assisted in developing a partnership with the House of Ruth Maryland Gateway Project, cited by the Health and Human Services as one of the first collaborations in the nation between a responsible fatherhood service provider and a domestic violence abuser intervention program. Dr. Rice has served in the role of consultant, speaker, workshop presenter, and faculty member, for the Office of Violence Against Women, Futures Without Violence, Office of Family Assistance, and other recognized governmental, social justice, and fatherhood organizations. He formerly served as board president for the National Resource Center on Domestic Violence and now serves on the board for the National Domestic Violence Hotline. His practice-based service delivery, employment in the area of youth development, foster care, and addictions counseling in the prison environment has greatly informed his work. Dr. Rice is a proud member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, the Baltimore Alumni Chapter, and the Benchmark. Dr. Rice has earned his Doctor of Public Health from Morgan State University School of Community Health and Policy and his MS and BS degrees in criminal justice from the University of Baltimore, respectively. He resides in Maryland and is a proud father and husband and has a whole bunch of knowledge, as you all can see. And again, is a really, really great, amazing expert and consultant with Ujima. So we always love to be in the room with Dr. Rice. Also does amazing work with researchers. So I would, if you're interested in research, Dr. Rice is a person to really make sure you reach out to. Next up, we have Tanji Reese, who is an expert consultant and advocate, friend of Ujima, and founder of a culturally specific domestic violence organization, 1124. Tanji is a Detroit native, advocate, preventionist, and founder of 1124, a program dedicated to reimagining gender-based violence prevention through a lens of liberation and community. Her work in the movement began as a sophomore in high school, where she participated in a traveling play focused on dating abuse. Her expertise has led to numerous training workshops for caring adults on ways to center marginalized youth in their work and developing culturally specific resources for organizations. In her many years of youth serving and gender-based violence work, she has held roles as a prevention program director, national community initiatives coordinator, and senior program officer, always centering the experiences of Black youth. She has presented at numerous conferences, including the National Sexual Assault Conference, and has built partnerships with several sexual assault prevention programs. Tanji sits at the Sanji sits on the IPV Prevention Advisory Board and partners with the National Network on Domestic Violence to create resources focused on technology abuse among young people. She's a firm believer that prevention is possible and holds a BS in behavioral science and an MA in education, leadership, and change. 1124 aims to reduce the prevalence of relationship abuse and sexual violence among young people. Through through an intersectionality and social liberation lens, we enhance the capacity of caring adults, both professional and personal, by providing trauma and consultation. Our programs of media literacy, storytelling, and identity affirmation to reimagine prevention. I love that, Tanji. It's been a while since I read through your your bio, and you bring a lot of amazing things. You're very tech savvy, generationally savvy. You really speak to what people are looking for, and so I'd love to have you here with us. And then last but certainly not least, my new friend, getting reintroduced. I was really thinking about what other type of programs that I know that are just really doing great, culturally relevant, culturally specific, trauma-informed work. And I thought about the Love Quest Foundation. And so I'm really glad to have you here, Jasane. Jasane Anderson Tejada, an incredible advocate, survivor, and the executive director of the Love Quest Foundation, a songwriter, alumni, and the Quest Foundation executive director. Jasane Anderson Tejada believes music is a universal love language. It inspires, enlightens, and empowers. She's blended her passion for music with her desire to help young people through domestic and teen violence and sexual assault, and for those who have gone through it. The Love Quest Foundation was born because of her own experience with domestic violence in college. To cope and heal, Josane penned her deepest feelings and experiences on paper. Eventually, she collaborated with musicians on the East and West Coast, putting some of her work into music. She wanted to empower young people in their relationships and help others better navigate their love quest. I wish there had been somewhere I could have gone to empower myself when I was going through it, Justine said. I wanted to do something to help young people experiencing trauma express themselves creatively. to learn to advocate for themselves and grow in confidence. I wanted to provide them with answers to questions I asked my younger self. Jasane resides in Dutchess County with her husband and two children, a graduate of Auxiliary College, and has a master's in criminal justice and bachelor's in liberal arts. She also attended the University of Hartford, where she majored in English and creative writing with a minor in criminal justice and Spanish. So, as you see, our panel is really stacked today. Um, we're going to have a lot of great conversation. I also encourage folks to drop questions in the chat. Let me go ahead and actually pull up our first showing for today, and then I have some questions and thoughts that I wanted you to all to unpack with me. Um, this animation, again, we developed it under our Connected and Protected grant, and it was a way to really have folks to just start conversations. We showed it across our 2 day new advocate training that we hosted this summer, and we were able to show it using our Oculus goggles. So it was much more immersive experience. It was really fun. We really got to hear some of the language that might be used just in our conversations as Black women. Our team developed everything from the script to the character design. Some of our team members actually voiced over the characters. So it was just a really great experience to really think about what we would have wanted, and what folks are asking for in terms of new ways to engage work. So I'm going to go ahead and show this and then we'll unpack some questions.
Whew, I'm over finals already. Right. Get somebody else to do it. Dr. Proctor is the worst. He acts like we don't have any other classes. He's a good teacher, though, and I've always liked all of his classes, unlike Professor Green. We know, girl. You complained all semester. You good, Nia? You're like extra quiet today. I'm good. He says it's because he cares, but it just feels like he's always trying to catch me in some lie or control who I'm with. I just don't think I can handle how controlling he is. But I don't want to throw away 2 years. We need more snacks. I'll go this time. Nia, come with me. So what's going on, Nia? And don't say nothing. Is it the boyfriend again? Is he still mad we all went out on Friday? No, he's not mad about that anymore. Now it's something else. He just always has something to say about everything. He's been forcing me to share my location, tracking me on campus, pressing me to send pics. It's too much. Sis, that's really controlling. You know you don't deserve that, right? I know, but sometimes he can be super sweet. If he can just control his temper, we'll be good. What? He put his hands on you? No, but the fights have been getting worse. And after we went out last Friday, he wouldn't let me leave until I promised to keep sharing my location. It was kind of scary. Do you want to tell anyone? Maybe we need more backup. Girl, no. I don't want everyone in my business. So how about this? I'll look for some help so we can work this out, friend. I'll just show them to you in person so he won't find them if he checks your phone. I mean, if you can find some, I'll take a look. Well, you know we love you, sis. I'm here for you. We all are. Are you going to tell the crew? Yeah, but only them. I do feel a little better knowing a few people know what's going on with me and can have my back in case something happens. I found this number for the National Domestic Violence Hotline, and they have a ton of stuff on there. I'll share what we find with Nia. I really didn't know that there was help out there. Yep, there is. We got your back. You are not alone, and you don't have to go through it in silence. If you or someone you know is experiencing any form of violence, whether it's physical, emotional, online, or something that just doesn't feel right, help is out there, and it's real. Ujima, the National Center on Violence Against Women in the Black community, is here for you. We believe in safety, healing, and support that's rooted in your experience, your culture, and your community. Know your options. Call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. You're not alone.
So that was really just a quick entryway for our first animation prevention. We're really excited to think about like how we can expand it and like develop it more. But it was again a really just we thought meaningful way to connect on it in a different way than sometimes people get. So I wanted to jump into some of the discussion questions that we have for our panelists, and I actually wanted to just have this one be open to anyone who wants to start. What are some of the power and control dynamics that often shape teen dating violence relationships?
So I'll jump out there. I want to say again, I appreciate the opportunity to participate in this discussion. And, I think that coercive control and possessiveness is a part of it. I just think about the animation that you just showed. And in that animation, you could see, or we read some of the interaction that was happening between the young people, and we could see some of this, keeping pressure on um, the young lady in terms of her whereabouts, accusations made towards her that was really impacting her wellness and her village. Her friends saw that something is happening here, and so I
Mhm.
think coercive control and possessiveness is a part of it. Tracking someone, wanting to know where they're at every given moment. Those are just That's just one example. But I do want to just speak to that animation. I think it's, particularly from a public health perspective, it's an excellent tool because it can be used to spur discussion, be it on college campuses or even with a younger group in high school in terms of dating relationships. But it can also speak to those persons who may be going through this type of situation and need help, and may move them to speak up and share what they're experiencing with people that they trust.
Thank you, Dr. Rice. Other folks?
I can share some, and I agree with you, Dr. Rice. I love that video because I think it speaks to just even just the modern ways that abuse can show up, especially around like technology. We don't Because so many parts of technology have been normalized. Sometimes someone texting constantly or making threats or saying things through text may not seem as serious, but it still is. And one of the dynamics around teen dating violence, I think that's different than domestic violence, relationship abuse among adults, is that idea of like having two people be unequal. So if you can feel like a parent or feel like you're in charge. And so I think that's a dynamic that is specific to young people because young people are navigating being young, and to have someone to try to fulfill that role as like the person who's in charge in their life can be hard to understand and navigate, especially when they're understanding and learning their own power and autonomy.
Absolutely.
Also, to add on to that point, another point of the video that I really liked is that they acknowledge the attentiveness and the care her friends took to observe something was wrong and to intervene when it was necessary, as well as it doesn't have to be violent in order to interject or intervene. So I love how at the end of the interview you pointed out whether it's emotionally or verbally that could also count as violence and domestic violence as well. And I feel like a lot of young people don't understand that that also can count as domestic violence. Even like her being pressured to send pictures, that could also count as coercion. And
Mhm.
that's very important to know. Like, and somebody was able to identify that even when they weren't giving the little signs that were showing, somebody was able to interject, which I also love that about the video as well.
And so,
And lastly, I'll just, oh,
oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, just the isolation is a power dynamic as well. Like, we don't know how long he made her stay in the house until she shared the location. So sometimes when you don't notice your friends, you notice that they're not around a lot, especially on a campus environment. Everybody gets busy with classes, extracurricular activities, just checking in with your friends if you don't actually physically see them, because sometimes they might not be able to come out and socialize.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Um, I always think about, when folks first really learn about domestic violence and dating violence, it's often not until they're experiencing it. When was the first time any of you heard the term dating or domestic violence, and what was the impact for you?
I think the first time I heard the term domestic violence, I was a young child, maybe 7 or 8 years old. And some other venues I've told my story before, but my father, he was abusive towards my mother. And my sister and I, we witnessed domestic violence in our household. And so there was a period where, my mom's family, who really was who we were leaning on at that time, they were frustrated because my mother was still staying with my father because she was hoping that he would change and make some positive steps, and he would, but then he would backtrack. And
Mm,
so one time it got very intense in terms of his threats to my mother, and she took us, my sister and I, out the house, and we went to a local shelter. And at that shelter, there were some great advocates there that were supporting our family. And we got to connect with other families who was experiencing the same thing. And I heard the term domestic violence as the advocate was discussing with my mother what she had been going through and experiencing. And so I was fortunate that my father, before he passed away, he changed his life to become a nonviolent man. But during that period, as a young person, as a young child, I was somewhat scared about what was going on. And then as I became a young adult, I started to get more angrier about what was going on and wanted to confront my dad to discuss with him why he was the way he was towards the family. So when I first heard it again, I was as a child, it was somewhat scary. As I got older and started to learn more about what it was as a young person, then I started to get more, I wanted to see more accountability around that type of behavior, particularly when I viewed us as a vulnerable people, my mom and us as young children.
hmm Thank you so much, Dr. Rice. Anybody else?
It was first introduced to me, well, actually in health class in high school, as but the way it was introduced with multiple topics. So it was like something that was like lightly touched on, but not fully like dissected in a way for us to like fully comprehend the density of the topic. The
Mm,
second time it was introduced to me was in college when I became an RA. Actually, we discussed sexual assault, and then we kind of like segued into domestic violence and how those tied into each other and coercion, and then how to be advocates on campus for our residents that experience domestic violence, sexual assault, cyberbullying, anything in that realm and dynamic. And the amount of like information I received, and even reflecting from like high school onto college, it was just like, wow, all of this stuff, like I know now. I feel like even if I was like a little bit younger, because I feel like in a sense, sometimes authority likes to like, shelter younger people to like, not give us all the information, but if because they one assume that we don't go through it or we're not gonna go through
hmm
it yet. So in a way, when we get older, I feel like they kind of give us all the information all at once, when it is like useful to like kind of progressively learn it as we go, but still have a good understanding of what domestic violence, sexual assault, and everything in between is.
I think that's a great point of like, I mean, to your point, it is often that once you learn about it, you're learning everything all at once, and it is very overwhelming. I really appreciate you amplifying that because, yeah, it is overwhelming to learn about all this violence that's happening all around you, and you might be experiencing it and not even realize, right? Yeah.
And then on top of that, it's just like at the time it's just like you understand what it is, but you don't understand why it's happening or,
Hmm.
why people tend to have like abusive behavior and whatnot. It's just like a concept that that happens, but you can't really wrap your head around as why it happens. So like dealing with the complexities as of that as well, kind of like, was also a factor that also like kind of crossed my mind as well.
Absolutely.
Similar to Dr. Rice, I witnessed domestic violence growing up, and my family was not shy about acknowledging what was happening. So we had a lot of conversations at a very young age, but also there were other folks in my family who were also experiencing abuse. And so I got some of that language in more colloquial ways than
Hmm.
naming it as domestic violence. But then I was mentioning my bio when I was in high school, I was a part of a traveling play. And that's really when I learned about dating violence because for me, it was more so something that happened with adults and older people. But when I learned, like, oh, my classmates can be experiencing these same exact things, or when this person did this thing that was actually abusive, it actually wasn't okay
Hmm.
for, my friend's boyfriend to tell her, like, you don't need to go to practice today. And it's a consistent thing. So that's really where I started to learn a lot more of that language, but also, again, just seeing it with my peers and wanting to understand, like Ruth mentioned, like why this happens. Like, how do we learn these behaviors? And I was also grateful to learn that many people who witness violence doesn't automatically make you a violent person. And so I think
Right.
for me in doing this work, a lot of it too was like my own processing and trying to understand my family members, and why this happens.
Absolutely. I think it's so interesting when when you're learning like colloquial terms, you're like, oh, later, like, oh, that is what that was. Okay. I knew something was happening. I knew it wasn't right. I knew it was violent, but I didn't know what it was, right? Yeah. I think that's really great. And so, for this next question, I actually wanted to open it up to Justine first, and then we'll open it up to everyone else as well to answer. What does meaningful prevention look like to you?
Yeah, so for me, we work with ages 11 to 24 as well as for families. So identifying red flags, awareness and prevention is key, as well as what is a healthy relationship? What is love? What are the love languages? How do you express love and how do you want to receive it? Right. I think intentional kitchen table topics at an early age is also a great source of prevention from your parents, your guardians, your village, uh, as a credible messenger, as a lived experience person, knowing that there's so many types of violence from emotional, financial, psychological, that it's not just one thing. So people are waiting for physical when it's like a lot of things that build up to that. So intentional conversations, dialogue, putting it in their language that they can understand, making it relatable, having different resources that we can, I'll get into a little bit later. But I think it starts with the intentional table topics, intentional
Hmm.
wherever they get resources and support, having that conversation and seeing it lived out, right? You can talk about something, but people, especially young people, they absorb what they see. So if you can tell them one thing, but you're doing the opposite, it's not gonna line up for them. So the resources and the actions need to be in alignment, and intention.
Absolutely. I think that especially with that age group that you really focus on, like people like they need to see action. They need to see it to believe it, and then, you can live it after that. I think that's great. Tanji, what about you?
Uh, Same. I also just believe in action, but I look at that as relationship is also a part of meaningful prevention, especially for young people who have not seen healthy relationships modeled. So
Hmm.
being able to show like what healthy relationships are and look like, but also what it means to be like a caring adult.
Yep.
At 1124, when we say caring adult, yes, it's like professional counselors, advocates, teachers, coaches, but we also like to engage aunties, big
Hmm.
cousins, mentors, uncles, like anybody who cares about young people and have young people in their life. I think that's important because most of the time, young people won't really go to their parents about things. But I might test something out on my big cousin, or maybe I tell my older sibling, or maybe, I connect. Like my auntie did my hair, and she always made it clear, like, I know some things you don't want to tell your mom. You can always come to me and talk to me about it. And so I
Yeah,
think we have that village approach, and we're able to have everybody around have some understanding of how to connect with young people. That's to me what makes it more meaningful.
absolutely. I love that. Dr. Rice or Ruth?
I was just going to say, I think it's it's my good colleagues have summed it up. I think at least from my lens, that the education and awareness and getting to our young people good information early on. Um, sometimes we have to also craft the counter narrative because some of the information that they may have been taught or received or observed and experienced may not be healthy. And so we have to, create those lanes or pathways for our young people to be able to address behavior that could be harmful or inappropriate. But there has to be some awareness that they understand that, right?
Hmm.
And we know that our each of us has a unique lens, and how that lens is often informed first and foremost by family. And with our young people, what's even important to keep in mind is that their brain is still developing, right? So there's a lot of things that they're experiencing, a lot of things that's happening, and now we're in a place in society where at least maybe, and I don't want to put anybody's age out there, so I'll just speak for myself. But I came from a period where there was only a couple channels, cable was just emerging, and there was no real 24-hour anything.
Hmm.
Whereas now, there's with social media and there's a lot of different social forces that can influence our young people. And so the same message, the same day that I'm giving them a message that's about healthy relationships, they may see a movie that's giving them a message that's totally opposite that. Right.
Hmm.
And so, or they may, see some things in their home or in other peer relationships that they want to adopt but aren't healthy. And so I think education and awareness is the key, but I think there's also has to be an understanding that our young people are kind of at this special status where they're not yet adults. And so, our work has to be very intentional in reaching them and crafting things in a way that they can absorb and want to absorb.
Hmm. Absolutely. And Ruth and I talked about that. What type of programming, what type of resources, what type of engagement would actually have reached you in the most meaningful way. And sometimes we're like right there, we're right next to the mark, but sometimes we're just really missing that youth voice. And we're really missing, how we should be centering youth leadership in our work. So I think that, is a great point. Absolutely. And Tanji, it might have been you during Connected and Protected who talked about you have to reset your algorithms all the time. Yeah, like and you have to be intentional about it because the algorithm will get you and you'll be in a loop of videos you want nothing to do with. So yeah, yeah, yeah. And Taji, I'll start with you for this next question, actually, and then again, open it up to the rest of the group. You do a ton of work around consent and healthy boundaries and privacy. What are some of the most critical pieces to understanding consent and healthy or respectful relationship dynamics?
For me, the foundation of teaching young people about consent and talking about consent and healthy relationships is first like personal agency. in understanding what our personal agency is. So our ability to have control over our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions. And so
Hmm.
that means that we have choice around the things that we do and we say, and understanding the power in having that choice. I don't think we can talk about consent without first empowering young people to know like the power that they have to make choices and decisions, especially, because many times young people are met when they talk about relationships with like, you're too young for that, or don't worry about it. But the truth is, we do have to empower young people to be able to make healthy choices. And I think autonomy is such a big part of that too. So, knowing, especially around body autonomy, and knowing
Hmm.
that like it's your choice. You have choices, to know that you have the right to say no, you have the right to say yes, and know what it is that you're okay with and not okay with. And these are things that can be taught very young, at very young ages. Like when we
Hmm.
teach young people about playing with other kids, we don't say like, oh yeah, play with them all the time until either one of you get tired. We say sometimes you need a break. Sometimes this
Hmm.
person doesn't want to play anymore. They don't want you to play with their toy, and that's okay. You can say, I don't want you to hug me, or I don't want to be touched right now, and being okay with having those conversations. But that's a big part of autonomy and personal agency. And I think it's especially important for young Black people, mainly because of the history of not having that body autonomy, and knowing that sometimes that history can be passed down and along to us, either like verbally or even just through our family history or what we're taught and what we know. We don't always get taught that we have that agency and autonomy over ourselves and our choices and our decisions. And so for me, that's the foundation before we even start talking about consent.
Absolutely. That was great. Other folks, do you have anything to add?
Um, just to add on to your point, I would just basically say like the one of the most important keys is like listening and conversation, and actually actively and intentionally listening to the person that you're talking to. And then honestly, with that being said, another thing like I knew like young people didn't know is just like consent could always be revoked at any stage. And I feel like that's one of a really important aspect I always try to like advocate to people and tell people like you can always choice is throughout every single process. It's not just at the beginning, middle, or end. It's at any single process. So I feel like that's also an important aspect of it as well.
Hmm. I think that for me is a really good, like it brings up a lot of thoughts because we often hear people say things sort of like that, of like, well, you said yes, so like you can't back out, or well, you chose them, so now you're stuck with them like for life, or you had a baby with them, so now that's just what your life is. You're their partner forever, or you're their baby mama forever, and that's it, as if there's ownership then. But again, like you can revoke the yes. It can go to a no, or it can go to a not right now. So I think that's really an important piece that a lot of times, younger folks, when you're getting taught about consent, that piece is still missing. So yeah, thank you. Anybody else before I go? Yeah.
Yes, and then also like not having nicknames for body parts, like call a thing a thing. Like
Mhm.
I have a 15-year gap between my children of 8-year-old and a 24. So a penis is a penis, a vagina is a vagina. So they're not coming home trying to explain something to you, a potential violation, and nobody can describe it. If
Mhm.
a young person says to an adult, I know what you're doing to my body part, is gonna make them, back off. So being able to verbalize the words, because before and intergenerationally we couldn't before, just
Yeah.
being very clear, with your children and the youth that you work with, so it's very clear, that language.
Yeah, I think that's so, so important. Because it is already difficult to talk about being violated, and then to not have the language that people can understand makes it even more difficult. So thank you very much. Um, Dr. Rice, can you talk to us a little bit more? What is the relationship between engaging men and boys in domestic violence work and community accountability?
Yeah, so I I would say that well, let me just back up, and I think I've this is something I've kind of been observing, but over the years, we are kind of hearing this term influencer. We're in an influencer society. And so the core of the work that I've done in this space has been, engagement and accountability, right? Engagement of particularly men who use violence, young men, older men who use violence, with the overarching aim to increase the safety and well-being of women and children. Now, I don't say that in a vacuum. I recognize that there are also same-sex relationships. I recognize that there also men can be victims, but we know based on the research that the majority of persons most affected by domestic violence are women. And so I'm kind of speaking from that lens. As a male ally, I try to use my voice and influence to affect change, particularly amongst men. Because you have some men who, and this I've learned this through my fatherhood work, who may have grown up in a house and experienced domestic violence. And then they find themselves using that same type of violence to negotiate conflict or to try to maintain control because that's what they saw their dad do, or a boyfriend, or someone who was in the home. And so you'll hear me keep echoing this. A part of it is this component of education and awareness, and creating pathways to change for men who get the information that they need to be able to do that. I worked in the prison system as an addictions counselor early in my career, and there were men there who wanted to do better and were looking for resources and tools to be able to do so because they wanted to reconnect with their children. So this aspect of engaging boys speaks to also, and men, is healthy relationships, right? And we touched on this earlier about toxic relationships versus healthy relationships. And so Futures Without Violence, Juan Carlos Arion talks about, Johnny, we have to, provide the counter narrative. A Call to Men, they discuss this aspect of breaking out of the man box and being able to redefine what manhood and masculinity looks like, and challenging some of the those norms that exist in a healthy way. And so just in terms of in my head, I have a lot of thoughts, but particularly around this aspect of prevention and engagement. We have, in college campuses, bystander intervention programs. So to say, we look at men can play a role in the prevention and the reduction of dating violence and domestic violence, and they have a responsibility to be able to do that. Fatherhood and mentorship programs provide a space for healthy discussion and education, and to be able to review different scenarios and to challenge men's attitudes towards violence and towards dating relationships and women. And also, you had mentioned earlier, Yana, some of the work the Center for Urban Families did with the House of Ruth Maryland. And our purpose of that collaboration was we recognized that some of the same men that they were working with in their views and intervention program who wanted to change also needed other services and resources to help facilitate that. And many of them were young fathers. They were parents, and so there was a feeling that they didn't want their young children to go through the same cycle that they had went through. And so part of it is this changing of norms, not just from an individual level, but from a broader community level. And the last thing I'll say is, on our campus, we have different initiatives to engage young men as well as women in student life. And so our Greek organizations, our various clubs and orgs that have guiding principles and that focus on wellness and respect, they also can play a role along with we have enforcement areas such as Title IX. We have the Coppin State University Police, and they're there to ensure also that our students feel safe, no matter what the status is in terms of their relationship. They should feel safe and have resources to go to if they feel as though things are getting overwhelming. So engaging men and boys are important. They can be male allies to the movement, and they are doing that on their respective campuses, such as those organizations that I mentioned. And there's also, I know we don't have time, but there's also a community aspect of, some communities want this aspect of restorative justice. They want an opportunity to have this conversation and to come up with solutions that are driven by them, and that are more victim centered from the perspective of the community. So I'll stop there, but those are some of the things that come to mind.
Thank you very much. And I see there's a hand up. Neelam?
Hi there, thank you. Um, just wanted to really support the points made by Dr. Rice. Thank you for bringing into the conversation the importance of including men in these conversations. And to that end, I do coordinate an online group for men that is centered around cultivating positive relationships with those that they interact with, um, specifically, their relationship within their families. But also, it's a form of personal development. And so we've received a positive response so far. And so I'm really interested in the work that you're doing with men, Dr. Rice. Thank you for your contribution. And I also wanted to pick up on a point that was made earlier when we were, that was around using the correct language when we're speaking of our body parts, for instance, or anything really. And that really reminded me of, many taboos that are established within families and communities. And, I'm a real proponent of trying to dismantle those taboos because they can be such a barrier, to effective communication and for those who may be seeking support or resources. I'm thinking particularly of our youth as they grow. If there are taboo topics that they don't feel comfortable speaking about, then that is really quite a concern in my mind because, as I mentioned, it is a barrier. As a parent myself, I really strive to be able to have an open relationship with my kiddos so that they feel comfortable coming to me as a source of support if something is going wrong or if they are scared about something. And, I think that starts from day one, honestly. And so by the time they are in their teens, there is an established foundation of support and communication. And that's something that through my work, I do try to really underline when working with families and individuals. And there's just so much wisdom in the room today. So I really thank everyone who's here for participating and sharing and opening doors really to the resources that are available. So thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
I wanted to make a comment if I could.
Yes,
Okay, my video and everything, I've been in and out, and my network
don't
is
worry about
weak.
it. Go ahead.
But anyway, so I may be repeating something that when I was out, but on the part where we're talking about the relationships, working with families, I work with a lot of families that utilize family support services, and sometimes those are young parents and what have you. But what we've seen is a lot of the families struggle with, multiple relationships. So with their other family members, with in work, people they provide services with, and we find that they need, empowerment and learning to have healthy relationships across the board. Because you'll find sometimes if they're involved in intimate partner violence, something like that, they may be having a very toxic relationship with
maybe their mom or their dad or what have you. So it just makes me think that working with someone who may be going through something like that, um, it's them really learning, a new way of empower it for themselves. So I didn't know if someone had hit on that. Um, and then
Yes.
also
And we're gonna get more into that too.
oh, okay, awesome. And then just the deal of using the correct terms, especially with um, children and people about using the correct terms for body parts, it really does help when it comes to forensic interviewing and stuff. So a lot of times it really does help when people are using the same terms and things like that. But thank you so much for this. But I just wanted to hit on that, specifically in our community, looking at our relationships and getting empowerment and learning about autonomy and stuff, and how do we do that and maintain some of our traditional cultures, that balance, because you can see it get the abuse of power
Hmm.
gets abused for bringing the beauty out of the culture, as well as us having healthy and balanced relationships. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Great points. And especially about the forensic exams as well. So we're gonna switch gears slightly and then get to showing the mini documentary as well. But Ruth, I wanted to really ask you, I know we've talked about it some, but what made you interested in joining the Teen and Youth Engagement Advisory Group to begin with? And what were some of the highlights or like key takeaways that you gained from our work in Charleston?
Well, what made me interested in joining the Teen Youth Advisory Committee was one, I loved how I never, in my experience of like in the professional world, seen an organization directly for Black women. So that initially just like peeked out at me the most. The second thing was that you guys also did hosted things within my community. I'm from Harlem, so I was just like, oh, so you guys know games. So yeah, and they actually are doing work within my communities and all over the US. So I was just like, they do work within my community and they're a Black-led organization. So I love that. So I was just like, I would love to be a part of something like that. I think I was like a year post grad as well. So I wanted to continue doing work that was specifically helping people who were victims and survivors of DV in my age group because I recently finished my undergrad, and in my undergrad I did a lot of work revolving that as well. And I understood the need and the importance of it even being an undergrad. So I just wanted to continue that work beyond that environment and even still circling back to that. So I was excited for an opportunity to absorb, learn more so I can be more of a better advocate towards for not only for Black women, especially for Black women, because I'm a Black woman myself, but anybody that I come across so I be able to help them.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we did a lot of work down in Charleston. We had a lot of really good conversations around
Oh, I can I add
consent.
one more
Oh,
thing?
yeah, go ahead.
And with the work in Charleston, I just absolutely love like the intention and that y'all put beyond behind everything, just like the environment that you guys curated for us because our group is a group from ages 18 to 24, I believe.
Hmm.
So just the environment they created for us, the intention they put in every single slide showed the people that they invited to help us truly understand like the work we're doing, how our impact matters and how we can carry what we learn and we can implement it in any type of aspect of our lives, no matter where we were. I just felt like I loved it. It was really intentional. It was really educational and yeah, I just really want to applaud the Ujima team for that every single time I can.
Thank you. Yeah, the TYE group really made that an amazing experience. I think to have a group, and the documentary gets into it a little bit more, so I'm not going to give too much away. But to really have a group of very diverse Black folk in one room of different ages who are new advocates, like emerging advocates in this work, was incredible. And everyone is so smart and fierce. And Ruth in particular is like super New York advocate realness every day, and I'm here for it, and we love her. So let me actually pull up the next screening of our mini documentary that we produced down in Charleston in August, Ruth, of last year. Again, this was us bringing together our teen and youth engagement advisors and doing some background work before we jump into a whole bunch of different projects that we have planned for the next year or so. So let me pull this up.
When my experience with sexual assault occurred, I remember feeling guilty about my sexual assault. I remember feeling like I was to blame, that I was wrong. My role is to provide culturally specific training and technical assistance to organizations that are working with survivors of domestic violence, of sexual assault, and community violence. We do that through our policy work, our research, our training. I'm Chris. I'm the Director of Training and Technical Assistance here at Ujima. This has been a long time coming and a birth child of the team. We wanted to bring back the Teen and Youth Engagement Advisors. So to be here on the ground in Charleston with 12 students who are really invested in this work is super exciting. There's a lot of truths happening in our community, and because we don't speak about it, or may not know, or aren't as aware of what's going on. I want to build the skill set and the confidence to actually speak up for others in ways that they can't speak up for themselves. We've gotten deeper on advocacy. We've gotten deeper on consent. I never paid attention to all the different meanings of consent. It's been able to broaden my perspective on it.
I think it's an important thing to address because how common it is, and especially in youth.
A lot of the people that I look up to and care for are Black women, and I think I want to, help amplify the voices that are being silenced.
It's absolutely innovative at Ujima. A lot of the old sayings are around, one size fits all, everybody needs the same thing. And we know that that's just not true. Between 40 and 60% of Black girls will experience sexual coercive behavior before the age of 18. 1 in 4 Black girls will be sexually abused before they reach the age of 18. Having to experience sexual violence at the age of 15, I didn't let it define who I was. It drove my passion to wanting to empower, protect, and just be there and support survivors. Who are planting those seeds in our lives? Who was that person that I connected with? I didn't have that. And so now, growing into the field, I feel like that we wanted to be a part of the start of Young Advocates. For me to think about doing anti-violence work or doing prevention work without also empowering the people doing the work is just a reiteration of violence. Not only are we giving education to the community, but then we're also allowing the community to practice in a home where it's safe. Not all of us know each other, so for us to feel safe and comfortable enough to be vulnerable and talk about hard times around people that we don't know, I feel like that was a good moment that we all got to share. So I do think we are beginning to build a little community here, and which is something I do really appreciate.
Now that I know resources and know what it looks like for someone who is domestic violence and how to handle that, and I want to take that back to my community, especially as a young Black woman. I want to take in and be a light for others who can't be a light for themselves. Culturally specific organizations have maintained and survived with their passion and their dreams, but funding is needed. Funding is needed to continue the work. Let your work speak for you. And this is the place where literally
You can let your work speak for you, where your passion and your lived experience and pour that into your community. So,
Ruth, that's the first time you've seen that, right?
Oh my gosh, that almost made me cry. Like, oh, that was such a beautiful, that was just a beautiful experience. Yeah, I feel like they just like hit it on the nail. Like we we ultimately didn't really know each other when we all just came into that environment. So it just felt immediately like a safe space. And I think you mentioned somewhere in the documentary, like you have to create a space for the people who's doing the advocating a safe space as well. And I feel like you just even having that in mind for us, that's also a beautiful thing to create a space like that. But yes, the way that they're explaining it in the video was exactly how it is and more like it was just a beautiful, curated a space to be comfortable and speak our minds and be vulnerable and be comfortable to do so.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So the documentary touched on a lot of the intersections of teen dating violence, domestic violence in later life, sexual assault, and sexual violence as well. How do you unpack those intersections for people in your community? And this is for anybody.
I just think it starts with open and honest communication and like a community to want to come together and speak about it. I feel
Mhm.
like that's like the start of it, if I can like think of the initial thought.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Just from a university lens, I think it's important to, and I think as a historic HBCU, historically Black college and university, we've in the past and to the present continued to create spaces for events, for discussions, for healing.
Mhm.
And probably several months ago, Taraji P. Henson, and I believe the Kate Spade Foundation, they created she pods in a section of our health in a section of our Henrietta Lacks Health and Human Services building, and providing that space, particularly for our women to be able to decompress and to have a safe space uh, so that they can um, just be connected to other scholars who are also kind of seeking this refuge. It's just been a impactful thing for our university, and it speaks to kind of the mental health and the different challenges that students of color, particularly African American students, face in a society that has uh, a lot of things happening.
Mhm.
So, I think that wellness, but creating a space where people can express themselves without fear, where we can bring community members together to talk about those intersections uh, and to try to move the needle forward in addressing challenges associated with some of the intersections are important. But also the beauty of an HBCU is we can also, and we have also, can uplift those uh, those those cultural things that help to grow and to heal and to propel us forward. And so
Mhm.
that's kind of what comes to mind when I heard that question.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we create public service announcements every year. We have red carpet premieres for them. It's free and open to the community. So our youth participants actually produce the films, they act in them, they help write the scripts. So letting them be in the creative process from beginning to end, and then inviting their families out. So we have an
Hmm.
intergenerational audience. We have elected officials. We have just people who are, leading the work coming together so we can just propel that conversation to the next level as we, get ready for our next production. So just involving everybody from the beginning to the end, and then having a Q&A and survey, feedback for ongoing discussions.
That's amazing.
Um, Something that we do is we like to just reduce the shame and blame that happens with dating violence and sexual violence, especially with folks who have experienced both.
Hmm.
Because again, like with many young people who don't have the space or opportunity to talk about relationships in general with their families, if something like sexual violence does happen, it can be hard to talk about that. And so just reducing that shame and blame, but also we create spaces, especially on college campuses, spaces for students to be able just to connect with each other, and to learn from each other. Because we really believe that healing happens in community, and it happens when folks are able to learn from each other, to make connections, and feel like I'm not alone and I'm not by myself.
Hmm. Hmm. And so I'm looking at my questions, and I know we're coming down on time, so I'm trying to prioritize the ones, but all of them you all are kind of speaking to already. Um, I want to keep us on this thread around healing that's come up. Where does healing start for you as an advocate, start for you just as a person in community? And what does it mean to have culturally relevant healing modalities? Tanji was just speaking to it as well as just saying about different modalities that folks engage in, but what does that look like for you all? Or where did it start for you, maybe?
For me, like I experienced intimate partner violence on campus when I was, I want to say 20 years old. I'm 45 now. I experienced sexual assault when I was 8, and I didn't go to therapy until 3 years ago. So making therapy something that is culturally acceptable, a cultural norm, we introduce that to our youth and families because I know, and culturally, it's not, the norm. Generations before me and currently. So there is a resource by a Black psychologist. They're called My Therapy Cards. We give them to the youth and families because if they never go to a therapist, at least they have, it's like a Uno deck card, and they have
Hmm.
journals. It's for teens and families specifically. So just knowing that a lot of years went by for me. I'm like, so when I finally went to therapy, the therapist was like, well, 80% of the work was like, your advocacy, your faith, and you just got to put this other 20% together. So just identifying that you need help, even though like I like to stay busy. So if I'm not busy, then I'm like silence is like it's not a thing for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
So the distractions of things and just just always doing something so I just don't have to like engage in whatever triggers or things like that. So identifying triggers, being able to say what a trigger is, being able to know what's going to set you off, or just all the things. So I just think introducing mental health resources at an early age
Mhm.
as well will help break the cycles of people not getting the help that they need. So for me, that's healing, and I'm still in that process. I don't think it'll ever be over, but I know just being intentional about it and seeking the help and resources that are available to us is a start.
Thank you.
I know for me, it was important seeing my. I had, and I know everyone doesn't get this opportunity, but I was afforded a chance to see my father change from a violent man to a nonviolent man. And it was very profound for me because I never thought when I was younger he would change. And it really informed even the work that I would do in human services and in the community-based sector and the governmental sector because, it made me realize that, sometimes things may not happen how I would like to see it happen, when I would like to see it happen. Now that doesn't take away, the the aspect of accountability, but it informed the work that I did with families because of the dynamic with my dad. I understood that because an individual or a family is at one place doesn't mean that they will stay there. And also, I think it was Tanji had mentioned the aspect of autonomy, but learning to what that means and respecting that, and working with families. So I know that for me, seeing my father take accountability for his behavior and change, and then model healthy masculinity, and then support others, not just in the family, but beyond the family, uh, and meeting people where they were, particularly other men who weren't in good situations, and giving them hope, but also giving them, the expectation of accountability. I'm going to help you, but I also expect you to want to be better, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted to be better. That's what they would say to my dad. So that really helped me. And I think my work in working with fathers and families, working in the community, working with youth, uh, it's inspired me. And I know we have Harlem and some of the other cool places, that are here. So in Baltimore, we also have that community pride and that grit and that determination. And so we try to tap into that as we work, particularly with men around change. And so healing is that acknowledgement of the harm, accountability, but also seeking to do better, not just in word, but in deed.
Absolutely. Tanji, you want to add?
Yeah, I have two things that came up. I had something in mind, and then Dr. Rice, when you talked about having that relationship with your father, I can definitely relate to that. That was a big part of mine, was just that acknowledgement and being able to have authentic conversations, but also having a space where he is a supporter of the work that I'm doing too. That has
Mm-hmm.
been a part of it. Another part of for me and where my healing started was through movement and getting reconnected with my body. I know that, it's so in line with like growing up. I heard so many things about being fast if you dance a certain way or if you moved a certain way. And for me, like reclaiming my body in that way and being able to move my body in ways that feel good to me, being able to learn my own body through trying new type of movement. And like I teach yoga, so even just through yoga, but also just through like dancing, and being able to enjoy and getting reconnected with my body and doing dances that people looked at me and said I was fast growing up doing. So that to me is a big part of my healing work too.
I love that, Tanji. We're gonna have to have a twerk party or something later. I appreciate that a lot. Ruth, anything from you?
I feel like with healing, it starts with honesty and transparency. And like my honesty and transparency moment right now is that I'm still figuring it out. I'm still trying to figure out what healing looks like to me every single day. I try new things and, I'm okay with that. And honestly, for me being a like part of like the younger generation, it does mean a lot to see older people like the older crowd like just like claim what healing means to them. Because honestly, it starts with like us looking at our parents or us looking at like higher authority with that. Like I remember I was in the office the other day and I saw this woman, she expressed to me that after 25 years she's just now getting a divorce and she doesn't necessarily know how her life will look like now, or she doesn't necessarily know like how the dynamic is going to be now without that person, because being with the person for that long, it's just like I could only like imagine how different life would be, but like all she said is just like that man is no longer her concern, and that's her biggest like like that's her happiest. That's the
Mhm.
reason why she could find joy and be able to sleep at night now. So just like I feel like with
healing looks different for everybody at every different stage of their lives, and I could always acknowledge and respect that. And like, it's just a beautiful thing to even take a step towards that direction. So I applaud anybody taking a step into healing, regardless of how that looks like for them.
Thank you. And for me, I'll just add healing looks like me always doing programming that I would have wanted and I really needed as a young Black advocate. Holding spaces and conversation for folks that like we would not have had or weren't seen as appropriate, or like Tanji said, moving your body, like just being free in in the space that you're in. That's all healing work for me. And even more so, like I was talking to Chris, my wonderful director here who's on the call. I was talking to Chris about our documentary, and even for me, for a long time, I had always said, I'm not personally a survivor of domestic violence, but I hadn't really thought about I did experience dating violence with a partner. And so like me going through that process in college, right? And so me going through that process of like filming this documentary, working with these young folk, really thinking about what other projects we're going to do in the future, I was like, oh, that is part of my advocacy, my life, my experience as well. And so sometimes you reclaim pieces that you didn't even know were missing, or you didn't even know were had been interrupted. So I love all of that and love everything that you all have brought to this conversation. I'm gonna open it up just a few moments to see if anyone has a question or comment that they wanted to add, and then we'll wrap up with our final couple questions. All right. So if anyone thinks of anything, drop it in the chat. But I wanted to make sure we get to these last questions in the bit of time that we have. So we have talked a lot around technology, and I just wanted to go back to it briefly and really think about social media narratives, or conversations we're having online, or just generally how again, dating and relationships are appear online. A lot of technology, as Dr. Rice mentioned, it looks different generationally. The use, the access, the availability. And so a lot of people still have this perception that technology is the cause of dating violence amongst young people. How could you explain that in a little bit more of a nuanced way where they could understand the impact of technology, but also the actual root causes of dating violence?
Well, I'll just say that in this day and age, particularly with social media and thinking about our younger population, there is there's a fear of being embarrassed on
Hmm.
social media. And so while there are, social media technology, I'm not anti-social media, I'm not anti-technology, but we talk about, this is a rough example, but it's like doses of medicine. You could take some doses of medicine that have you feeling great and lead you on the way to recovery. But if you take too many doses, or you don't take it as prescribed, that same medicine could have an adverse outcome. And so
Hmm.
when you look at social media, you look at technology, the concern is, you could have digital surveillance and technology of technological abuse that is of a concern. And we see it with like location trackers. We see it with threatening to leak photos or screenshots that could be personal or intimate. Those are all things, um, being able to try to hack into a partner's account or take over their account or access their account inappropriately. Uh, those are the kind of concerns that I see. And so going back to that theme of education and awareness, it's being able to say, and I remember even with my daughter when she's of college age now. But when she was in middle school, she was playing a video game that the middle school had provided for them. And it was like then it was a quiz at the end. And it was showing all of these pitfalls around technology. And like this person reaches out to you, and what do? On social media, you don't know who they are, and they're not showing their face. But I found it profound at that time, at her age, that she was getting something that was educating her and her class regarding the pitfalls and the kind of risks and threats associated with utilization of technology. And so I think that it is important that we remain vigilant and we provide parents and community the information that they need to understand what is healthy use, what is unhealthy use. Unfortunately, young people also are being targeted, right? And relationship could end, and then that same technology that was keeping this couple connected is the same technology that is driving someone into depression and feeling unsafe. And so I just think that we have to continue to discuss the importance of having safeguards in place. And I think education and awareness within our village is important.
Thank you.
Can I add on to that too?
Yeah.
Um, Also to like add on to the social media aspect of it as well, even like with the new things that arrive or like, toxic traits that, people can use. Like say if a partner sees that you posted somewhere, just arriving at that pace or like keeping tabs on you on that, like whether like when you post stories on Instagram and like you say put your location, wherever the case, or they may recognize that location, I feel like that can be a danger as well. Or I remember when we were in a TYE group, I remember one of the staff members were mentioning like Instagram now has like you can put your location for anybody to see if possible. And a lot of people were like they didn't even know that location was on. That could also be a danger as well. And then I feel like another aspect that I just like, thought of as well when it comes to like online is like online dating and like the the pros and the cons of that. And a lot of people say like they use online dating as a way to connect because like they have like busy work schedules or whatever the case may be. But like that also can be like a danger as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just
I
want to just
think
jump back in. Oh, no, go ahead.
I had wanted to say too that, especially in it's just transparency, and that our youth, they can, I mean, they're intelligent and they can receive information. Yeah, you adapt things based on their developmental, level, but just being honest, and they do have the capacity to recognize all those different nuances of how it comes in, and so not painting it just wide. They're like, oh, technology is doom and gloom, but they can handle you talking about, for example, the violent pornography that there's some of the violent pornography that's impacting our youth, um, that leads to violence and different things. And that's one aspect. And going over to, like you're saying, dating or, your location, things like that. Yes, they can handle learning all of that. They're brilliant, they're smart, they're brain, and that we should not be afraid of that and to be transparent and inform them so that they can be, healthy, grow up to be healthy adults that make decisions for themselves. I think we need to,
Absolutely.
yeah, recognize that. Yes.
Thank you. Tanji, I'll give you a last word on that, and then I have one final question for wrap up.
Yeah, I agree with everything that was said so far. I like there are uses that are great for social media and technology, but it also can be misused as well. And that's why it's just good to start those conversations early again and talk about like boundary setting. Like you'll be surprised what young people are using and doing social media for. And because so many relationships are starting online, like it could be through a dating app, but it could also just be through a game, and gaming. It can be through a DM that somebody is building a relationship. And so being able to talk about that with young people, I think is important. But I also think that that's where us as advocates and folks who do prevention work is it's opportunity for us to build deeper connections with young people because young people are already on social media and you mentioned changing our algorithm, and I think as much as we can contribute to that positive algorithm and be able to create technology like the video that you all show with the Oculus, like I think those are ways that we can really start to reframe how we think about dating violence. Like yes, there are harmful messages that are there on technology, but there's so many positive things that we can do with technology too.
Absolutely. Um, all right, I'm gonna turn this last question to Jasane first. One final takeaway that you really want participants to leave with. One final thought.
Whew. Um, Safety is normal, right? Feeling safe and being in safe spaces should be a normal thing. And if you don't feel safe in those spaces, you remove yourself to the
Hmm.
best of your ability.
Thank you. Dr. Rice, what about you? Final thought.
As a young high school student at Baltimore City College Senior High many years ago in the 80s, I remember one day leaving out the building and looking out into the community and saying I was so frustrated because of the community violence, and it encompassed the dating violence, just all the things I had saw. And I said to myself, if I'm fortunate to make it to adulthood, I'm not going to forget about the challenges that young people have to navigate in Baltimore and in other places, and I'm going to try to make a difference. And so I would just say, as we think about teen dating violence and domestic violence, that all of us can play a role, and we should support the village so that it's safer and healthier.
Thank you. Thank you. Ruth, what about you? Final thought.
Well, you putting me on the spot. No, I'm
You
kidding.
do it.
Mhm.
One thing I always like to say, like even to my peers, is just like be comfortable having uncomfortable conversations. It's the only way to lead to breakthrough. And also, never be afraid to reach out to your community, whether it's big, small, little in your head, like your community will always make space for you.
Thank you. I love that. Tanji, my good sis, got the last word. Final thought.
I know it's so hard to follow that because I want to say everything that everyone else said. Because I agree with it like that. We all have a role in prevention. And also just, I guess my last note would be just a message of hope and just knowing that, sometimes we have conversations about things like dating violence that is seen through a lens of all the harm that happens and all the negative parts of it. But I do believe that we can build hopeful, healthy, safe, and joyful relationships, and we can talk to young people about those too. So that's my last note.
That's amazing. And we're going to end it there. Thank you all so, so, so much. Panelists, you are amazing. You do such great work. You are really just, you have so much wealth of information and resources. We appreciate you so much. Thank you, everyone who joined the call. Again, our incredible panelists actually each all recorded or will be recording a one-on-one Ujima Talk conversation. And so stay tuned for that. It'll be launching on our YouTube in just a few days, actually. And again, they go into a lot more of their own work organizationally, a lot more into their experiences and what their vision for the future of the work looks like. So thank you all again so, so much. Folks, stay tuned for more programming, webinars, coffee and convos, Ujima Talks. We're at Ujima Community everywhere online. Check us out, and we will make sure you stay connected to the folks on this call as well. Have a great one, y'all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.